Hi, this is Trinesha, and today I wanted to talk about the den. So, what made me want to talk about the den is today at church, the pastor was talking about how Daniel was in the lion's den. And so, before I go into that story, let me just go onto my phone and pull up my notes that I did today because you know how I get and I got to stay on topic. So, so the pastor had mentioned something about we work and then eat. And when he said that, he was telling a story about Daniel and the lions, and he was also talking about us and, having fruit within our labor and making sure that we are, faith without works is dead and things like that. And but when he said this phrase, it did something to my soul, and it really made me feel like, we work and then we eat. And I started to think of how we work and eat. This is what I wrote. I'm just reading from the thing that I wrote just so I don't like lose my train of thought. So I said, we work and eat by the nourishment of our soul, healthy eating, and treating our body like a temple. Then he went on to talk about Daniel in the lion's den. And of course, for those of you that don't know, and I try to like do like a little, like, just a little like vocab thing, when it comes to words or things like that I throw in. And I only do this because sometimes we hear a word for so long we forget what the meaning is. Like we know this is where an animal was or something like that. Or we might know like a den is like a room in the house. Or we might think, oh, a den is just like in mountains. Or like we would have an idea of what the word means, but not know the true definition of it. And still, even me reading this is just like a general conciseness. This is not like a thorough like investigation of what this word is. This is just like a little thing. I'm gonna need a pen. This is like a little thing, and so it just says that it's a layer of shelter for a wild animal, especially a predatory mammal. And so when I was thinking about the pastor talking about the den, Daniel being in the lion's den, it really made me think about how sometimes we can be in the worst of places and God can bring us through it. Sometimes we don't even realize how graced we are by God, and we just he saves us. Even when we don't see how it's going to work out, he steps in on our behalf. And the thing that the pastor said that I thought was really important is that Daniel had faith. He believed in God and he had faith. And it was God who saw him through not being eaten by the lion, not being seen as prey by the lion, to have the lion not even recognize him as an enemy. And so when he was alive, it was because of the faith that he had in God. It's because of the faith that he had in the God that he praised, which is our God. And so it really made me think about how no matter what we're going through in life, as long as we have faith, God will see us through whatever it is. When we know that we have a God who who is like no other, a God who is the God of abundance, the God of everything. Like when I really think about who God is in my life, it's my faith, the faith that I have in God that sees me through every single obstacle that I face. Every time, and I wish I could share this story, but I can't share it because privacy and all of these other things. But I can tell a story that's similar that may resonate with someone else. And so, when God says he will make your enemies your foot, they will become your footstool, he is absolutely telling the truth. I have encountered certain people in my life who have been so mean and so nasty. And because I stayed focused on God, when I could have said something rude, when I could have said something to like crush the person's spirit, when I could have done something that was the wrong thing to do, I really thought of what would Jesus do. I really thought of what would be the best solution or the best reaction for me in this situation, because do I want temporary satisfaction or do I want longevity in my faith? And I chose longevity and faith. And because I did that, I believe that God saw that he could trust me. And so he stepped in, and the person who was so nasty and rude to me, his or their manager, their general manager, when I was back when I used to work in like that environment, the general manager of the company, I ended up being cool with the general manager. So as long as I was doing what I was doing, as long as I was working, because faith without works is dead, as long as I was staying focused on God, as long as I was doing the things that I needed to do, God literally made sure that no matter what anyone else said, no matter what anyone else did, I was going to be fine, that I would be covered. And also, like, I know not everybody's story is going to be like mine. Some people's story might be like, well, these people were mean to me and I no longer work there anymore because, they never wanted me to be there. Maybe God didn't see that you needed to be there. Maybe that was never where you were supposed to be in the first place. And I know some people are probably going to talk about finances and things like that. Were you staying focused on God? Were you putting forth an effort? Did you put in a lot of job applications? Are you doing the things that shows that you are being faithful, that you are actually putting forth an effort, that you're working at whatever it is that you're doing, so that God can open other doors for you? Because God's never going to close a door without opening up many more. He would never remove a job from your life without there being several other positions available. He would never remove you from a situation unless there was another opportunity. He would never end a kingdom relationship at all. He would never end a relationship in general if that was the person that you're meant to be with. And I know there's extenuating circumstances, and there are times where God will say he has to do work on you before you can be with this person, because you don't want to have an unhealthy, toxic relationship. And sometimes time makes all the difference. Sometimes you need that time to grow, to become a better person. That's not every person. Usually, God won't introduce you to the person. Can I say that because I'm single? But in general, most of the time, and there might be life that happens, but it's usually not you meet this person and God removes the person from your life and you're supposed to be with them. Usually life happens, you know, or usually you jump ahead of God. God might tell you to wait a year, wait 6 years, however long it is. And you're like, but it doesn't make any sense. We're both good. Like, I feel healthy. I feel good. I'm in a good position. Like, why not just go for it now? And you just run ahead of God, like you, like you're God of your life. Like, yes, you can control the things that you can control, but you can't control the outcome, because it's going to happen the way that God intended for it to happen. And so sometimes when we run ahead of God and we try to make things happen for ourselves, we make the situation worse. And God might not think that you're ready yet. You might feel healthy and happy, but you might not be vulnerable enough to be in a relationship. Might not be emotionally intelligent enough to be in this relationship. You might still have things that tick you off easily, and you might need to be able to learn some patience and learn how to handle conflict resolution before you get into another scenario or another relationship. God is not going to want to give you his child for you to mistreat, disrespect, and dishonor the person that he blessed you with, you know? So if you're somewhere where you're not healed, if you're somewhere in a position where you feel like you're not going to treat this person with the way that God would intend for you to treat this person, then you're not ready. And you can't force yourself. I used to think that I could force myself to be in relationships. I could force myself to be with certain people. And every time I did that, it was not beneficial for either one of us. I was a hot mess, or they were a hot mess, or I was looking crazy and they was looking crazy. Like, when I say crazy, I mean that loosely. I don't mean it in a, like, that type of way. I mean it in a, like, acting silly, like doing ridiculous things that make absolutely no sense at all. And I say it like that because sometimes you really feel like like there's a point, like your actions are valid, and really you look ridiculous because you have not healed, because you have not grown, because you're not where God intended for you to be. sometimes in my life, like especially with my business and other things, I'll think, okay, God, I'm ready for whatever it is. How am I going to tell God I'm ready for whatever it is? Like God knows when I'm ready, and it's an appointed time for everything from my business to a relationship to things that He wants to introduce into my life. I don't want Him to give me something and then I become big headed, egotistical, arrogant, or start to idolize a thing that God blessed me with. That's why I think that He takes His time to be able to get you things. That's why I think, like, for me, and I feel like I could share this journey because, it's my life and it might help somebody else. I feel like that's why God put me in a position where, I barely could make any money. And, when I first like moved out on my own, I really couldn't afford anything. I was working like several jobs and it was just not enough money at all. And I was the type of person that needed help but didn't want to ask for help, and I'm still kind of like that a little bit, but I try to get better at it. And so so I started at that position and I had this car. Mm, Old Betsy. I know you're probably like most of my other friends or people that I know that said you named your car a woman name. Listen, it's Old Betsy, it's Old Betsy. I don't know what other name I would have came up with. It fit. It was a thing. And so I had this car and I think I told this story before, but I had this car and it literally I liked this car, it got me from point A to point B. It did a squeal thing when it started. I was the person in a car, I know. And any person could be in this situation. So I'm just saying this to paint a picture. I'm not saying it to like pick on anyone or make anyone feel badly about the situation they're in. I'm just trying to give you an idea of where I was and how God brought me through this journey. And so the car like squealed. You would start it up in the cold and it would be like, it would be like a loud squeal. And then it would sound like it was trying, to do the things that it needed to do, but it was really struggling. And then I had like, there was like marks all over this car. And man, it just, yeah, it was something else. And, and I think that God allowed me to have cars like that because it allowed me to appreciate cars that actually do get me from point A to point B where I don't have to fix a bunch of things on it. It allowed me to be in a position where I'm more grateful for having certain types of vehicles instead of just having, and nothing's wrong with the old vehicle. I'm just saying, I think that if God would have started me out, which that's a whole nother story, but I think that if God wouldn't have gave me a purpose, like if He wouldn't have gave me a time in my life where I started from the bottom and then moved up, or started from one position of my life to another, I would have been completely ungrateful. I wouldn't have appreciated the journey. I wouldn't have appreciated the fact that I worked so hard to get to where I am. I would have probably taken advantage of it. I probably would have thought this is just how everyone lives. This is just normal. I wouldn't have really thought about the work or the effort that goes into living a certain type of life. I wouldn't have known like the type of skills that I had to learn, the people skills, the communication. I wouldn't have met certain people if I hadn't been in that position. And it's so funny because sometimes we want to be in this big position, this big glamorous position. We want to do all of these exciting over the top things, but what about the little things? What about the things that actually really do matter? That's going to make a difference in your life, that's going to advance you in the kingdom. What about those things? Because sometimes we think about, well, I want to be in this place because it's got nice big shiny lights, instead of just appreciating the fact that you're at another place. And am I saying that you stay stagnant in your life and never grow or develop or become better or advance? Absolutely not. I'm just saying that sometimes we forget to appreciate the journey and appreciate the small things that God might say, like, go help out at this community center or at this small church or something like that. And you're like, why am I helping out at this community center or wherever else when I could be at this big time one that has all of the bells and whistles and they've already got it up and running? But little did you know, the community center that you were going to work at was going to introduce you to someone who works with different programs in different places that would be able to give you a grant for your business. Or they were the type of person who was going to get you on stage with a whole bunch of other people that you didn't even know that this was the person who hosts those events. This was the person that holds galas, or the type of things that you would need to advance this community center and turn it into the thing that looks like the other one. You're the person who needed to be there to get those things. But because you were so busy focused on this other thing that's already accomplished, you were so busy focused on something that was already where it needed to be, and God needed you to be here because he needed you to be able to see what the process looks like from the ground up. When you go into like this place that's already established, they might say, okay, we need somebody to do cameras, lights, or we need someone who does videos or whatever else. You wouldn't have learned that if you hadn't been at this place. And now that you're in another position, the opportunity that presented itself that God put for you, he appointed this for you from the moment that he told you to go to this place. But because you couldn't see why you were there, it won't make sense to you, because God only gives you the information that you need. He doesn't give you the whole story. Because if he gives you the whole story, then you're going to start acting up. You're not going to know how to act. You're not going to be humble. You're going to be arrogant. You're going to be feeling conceited. You're going to be really feeling yourself. And so to keep you humble, God allows for you to go through things. He allows for you to start at the ground up. And I'm not saying everybody has to go to some place that needs, like, some place that God didn't tell you to go, and you're just there because you want to feel good about yourself because you're helping the underdog. Like, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying if God is telling you to go somewhere, even if it doesn't make sense, you need to be there, because God wants you to be there because he knows that it will bless you. It will give you the skills to communicate. It will give you the skills to be able to work different things and have a work ethic. It'll allow you the ability to be humble because you have humble beginnings. It'll allow you to see that there's good and bad people. It'll show you different environments instead of you just going straight to your dream job and working it. Maybe you work this other place because it's showing you how much more you could really appreciate being your own boss, or how much more you could appreciate working at a place that doesn't have all of this other stuff going on. And it's so funny because the pastor said something today and it really made me take things into perspective, because sometimes we don't think like this. He said, no matter what anybody else says at your job or wherever you work, no matter what they say about you, no matter who's talking about you, no matter what's happening, you just have to do the best that you can do. It doesn't matter what the outcome is. It doesn't matter what's happening. You do the best that you can at your job, whatever your best is, and stay faithful to God, and everything else will work out. Don't don't join the group of people who want to complain about the job. Don't join the group of people who want to talk about the manager, the general, the manager of the store, the team lead, or whoever it is. Like, you need to make sure that you are focused on getting the job done, because faith without works is dead. And you putting in work, even though it's in this environment, even though it's not what you would imagine it to be, it's showing God how faithful you are to him, because you're diligently working. This isn't even your thing, and you're putting forth this kind of effort. God would be thinking to himself, imagine what she could do if I actually put her in the field that I want her to be in. If I actually give her the opportunity that she needs to be in. If I actually blow her whole business up, like glow her whole business up, like make it something that you would have never imagined that it could be. Imagine if I would have done something like that for her. But the only way I can do it is if she's humbled herself. The only way I can do it is if she works hard. The only way I can do it is if she keeps the faith. She cannot just pretend like this is insignificant in her life. She can't pretend as if someone else has more control over her life than God. And sometimes we get into these positions or predicaments in our life with relationships or work or friendships, and we really feel like the manager has the final say. But the person who has the final say is God. They can't hire you or fire you without God. If God doesn't want you to be there, you're not going to be there. You might be there for a season so that you can learn how to deal with difficult people. You might be there for a season so that you can learn how to have a better work ethic. You might be there for a season because instead of you being the type of person who runs away from everything all the time, maybe this is the time for you to stand still so that God can show you and allow you to learn some lessons so that you could use it in the next level. You're not going to be able to learn any of that if you're getting everything that you want every single day. If you don't have to deal with any kind of pull in your life, any uncomfortability, then you are constantly going to be stagnant. You're going to be so comfortable that you're not going to want to do the things that God wants you to do because it's going to feel uneasy. But I want to be uncomfortable. Does it feel good? No, sometimes it feels weird because it's like, as soon as I get into a place where I'm comfortable, I'm like, okay, I gotta learn another skill. As soon as I get into a place where I feel like, okay, well, this is a routine, I'm good with this routine, I'm like, I gotta do something else because if I got this down, I can add one more thing, or I could do something here a little differently, or maybe instead of me talking to this person this way, I can learn how to talk to people this way. And I've been really working on like my things that I have, my like Achilles heel, my flaws, whatever else you want to call it. I've been really working on them lately, and I'm so proud of myself today. I did not give in to join in on some of the things that I used to do in the past. Like I know it sounds like crazy because sometimes you meet people or sometimes people will look at you and they just feel like, okay, she's going to be like this, or she needs to act like this, or whatever else. But if you know you're struggling with something, you need to really create distance, or you need to figure out what it is that's your weakness so that you can work on it. Like, I know what my weaknesses are. It's the invulnerability thing. It is, the running thing. Like, every time in the past, I would feel myself get close to somebody, and this could be a friend, this could be anybody. I would just run from the situation. I would create a situation so I didn't have to be close to that person ever again. And now that I'm older, I know that's not the right thing. Now that God's given me more experience, now that I'm being more Christ-like, I know that I can't have a Christian relationship of any kind, like a community of people, that I can talk to, or people who I can, help or whatever else, if I'm pulling away from them. How could they ever feel like they could be vulnerable with me if I'm not even open to allowing them to see a part of me? So now I'm trying to be more intentional about letting the right people in. I'm trying to make sure that I pray on it and allow God to guide those people to be a part of my life, or to remove them if they're not supposed to be there. And I always tell God, this is like an area of my life where I'm weak because I'm so standoffish. So when I used to be so standoffish. So when I meet people and they get close to me, sometimes it's really hard for me to be vulnerable, or sometimes it's really hard for me to let them go, especially when I used to push people away so quickly. So when I allow people an opportunity to get to know me or something else, it's kind of hard for me to let go because I don't let everybody in that circle. And so I try to be intentional and pray to God, like, God, even when I'm not strong enough to walk away, remove this person from my life. Because I would like to sit here and be like most women and men who like to paint this picture that it's just such an easy thing to just let go of things, the thing that you really want, or the person that you really want, or the job that you really want. But it's not that easy. It's easy to talk about it and say, oh yeah, if this was me, I would do blah. But you never know how you would do in someone else's situation if you lived their life. You really don't. And it's really easy to say words, to say a sentence, and make it seem like it's going to be that simple to let go of that person, place, or thing, but it's not always that easy. Sometimes it fills a void in your soul, or I don't want to say soul. That's a little heavy for a person, because God's the only thing that fills that for me. But and usually, like, that person that just kind of feeds a part of you that is missing something, or that needs something. And also, you have to make sure that that part of you is healed, because a person can't fill any position in your heart, your soul, any void that you feel like you're feeling. It needs to be filled with God, and it needs to be filled by you. The person who comes in, their only job is for them to be themselves, for you to accept them as they are if you're planning on them being a part of your life. It's for you to really seek to understand them. And I got that from TG. But it's true, because if you really just have this picture in your head of who you want someone else to be, they can't be themselves. And if you're not trying to understand them or learn them, then why are you with them? You're wasting your time, you're wasting their time, because you can't make someone be something that they're not. You can't make them into something that you want them to be. They have to be themselves. So even though, like, in your head you're thinking this person's going to be this and this, they might not be like that, because that's not who they are. That's who you imagine that they are. And you can't make someone be something that they're not. You just can't. So I'm going to say, in conclusion, in conclusion, when it comes to the den, just like Daniel in the lion's den, just continue to have faith in God. Know that He's going to be there with you every step of the way. You don't have to go at anything alone, even though it feels like you're alone, even though sometimes, and you are all in one, alone, even though sometimes you might get lonely, you will never be alone, because God will always be with you. God will be there with you to guide you through whatever situation it is that you're going through. You just have to call on Him and let Him know that you need Him. He's not just going to force His way into your life. He's a gentleman. He's going to make sure that you are willingly asking Him to be a part of your life, that you're willingly asking Him to step in when you can't fight your own battles, that you're asking Him to help you when you're not strong enough. You ask Him to step in when you feel like the world is too much to bear, you know? And so you really have to stay focused on God and stay faithful, so that no matter what is happening, no matter what changes around you, no matter who's in or out of your life, no matter what positions you do or do not hold, God will always be the constant. And if you stay focused on Him, you don't have to worry about anything else, because God got you.